It's going to come down to that. Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, they got to do their jobs. They're going up against Darius Smith and Daniel Hunter. If the O-line wins, Goff usually looks pretty sound. If the D-line wins, Goff gets rattled and he throws picks. And so I'm saying right now, that's a place to look at in this game as far as impact. Watch what's happening on those ends when we're getting pressure on Goff. Because if they get pressure, Goff's going to throw into traffic and the ball is going to be picked off too many times and the Lions are going to end up losing this football game. But if they are able to keep the pocket clean, Goff will have time, and our wide receivers, he's been able to get them, some yardage, and, when he's able to throw correctly and on the right point, the wide receivers have done a good job of making the catches and getting yards out of them, expecting, obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown to take advantage of that situation. You brought up something with Adam Thielen and Jeff Okudah. I'm looking at the injury report, and I still don't know what's happening with Amani. If Amani's playing, that's where Okudah's going to be, obviously. If Amani's not playing, Jeff Okudah's on Justin Jefferson. And here's your first real test. Look, he did a great job. Yeah, right. He did a great job against Devontae Smith and the Eagles. He did a fantastic job there, but the focal point wasn't Smith. It was obviously A.J. Brown. If it's Okudah on Jefferson, we all know that who the focal point is going to be going through the air, and it's going to be Jefferson. We're going to see real quickly how healthy and how good and how back to normal Jeff Okudah is when he has to deal with one of the best wide receivers in all of football. So it's going to be interesting to see if Amani Oruwariye is going to be back in this game or not. He has not practiced so much this week, and is one of the many Lions that's been having issues. There's a bunch on this list as far as injuries. From Aiden Hutchinson, we saw his thigh get wrapped up at the end of last week. Jonah Jackson, still not much. DeAndre Swift with an ankle, didn't really participate much, but I'm expecting him to play. TJ Hawkinson, some issues there with his hip. Frank Ragnow with his foot. So there are some injuries to pay attention to, but so far the Lions have pretty much weathered the storm with the injury reports. They gave the Eagles everything they could handle before falling there and had a great win last week when we were talking again about a piecemeal offensive line that went up against Washington and got the job done.
Yeah, with the offensive line, I guess you just hope if guys are still out, right? Ragnow, Vaitai, and Jonah Jackson. Like, if those guys are still out or not playing, you hope you can kind of get that same Herculean effort that you got last week. And just because it happened last week does not mean it's going to happen this week, especially when you are throwing, backups in. We had Dan Skipper, obviously a practice squad guy. And my thought would be, if that's the type of guy who's capable of putting 2 good weeks in a row on an offensive line, you probably wouldn't have been on the practice squad all these years. But I guess we'll see. I hope that the offensive line can obviously get back together, but that is just what it is, right? It's a hope. It's not. We don't know anything yet. We'll probably know more today when the injury report comes out. This video is going to be, we're talking to you guys at like 12, probably close to like 12:45ish right now, and I think the injury report comes out at 4. So check in 3 hours, you'll probably have a better idea of who is playing in the game. But I think you're right. That's where it comes down to. It's the offensive line against the defensive line. The Vikings, like you said, have given up a lot of rushing yards, a lot of rushing success against their 2 opponents. And I still want to give credit, because I know it sounds like we're both kind of down-talking the Vikings and propping the Lions up. But the Vikings did beat the Green Bay Packers, who are a better team than the Washington Commanders are. So I still don't want to sit here and act like Minnesota is just, some scrub team that the Lions should easily do away with. But I'm feeling a lot more confident about this game today than I was when I first saw the season and saw that we had to go at Minnesota in Week 3.
Well, let me give you some numbers to help you feel even more confident going into this game. When blitzed this season, Kirk Cousins ranks 4th worst in the NFL among quarterbacks in passer rating. The Lions blitz the 4th most in the NFL at over 25% of the snaps. So, you put 2 and 2 together, the Lions blitz gets home, Cousins gets rattled, he throws another 3 picks to our version of Darius Slay, who, well, it should be Darius Slay, he should still be on this team, but throw it to Okudah or whoever. So if the blitz gets home, it's going to rattle Cousins. Cousins is going to make those mistakes. Again, like you said, he plays a lot better on Sunday afternoon than he does on Monday night. But the numbers speak for themselves that when he's blitzed, and this is, I'm sure this is for all the quarterbacks really, except for the mobile ones who can escape it. But when blitzed, you're not doing as hot. But he is the fourth worst as far as passer rating, and the Lions blitzed the fourth most in the NFL. So that obviously plays into the Lions' favor. Something also to look into is the Vikings running game. Cook carried the ball 6 times. That's it last week against Philadelphia. Don't expect that number to be that low against the Lions this upcoming weekend. I imagine that Dalvin Cook is going to be much more heavily involved in the attack for the Vikings this weekend against the Lions than he was this past week against the against the Eagles, unless the Lions can do what the Eagles did and get on top early and then make the Vikings play catch up, and they have to go through the air.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to go down like that 2 weeks in a row to where the game script just dictates that you basically have to abandon running the ball. Even for the really bad teams in the NFL, you're typically not going down 2 or 3 scores in back-to-back weeks to start off the game. So for Minnesota, I would expect Dalvin Cook to be involved more heavily in the running game. And with those blitzing stats that you had on Cousins, was that just for this year, or was that like a larger sample?
No, that was year? So that was just for the last couple years. He's completed 49% of his passes while under pressure, but this season, when blitzed, he's the fourth worst in the NFL in passer rating.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, if he's 49%, I imagine that's probably pretty low on there in completion percentage as well. I know they're different stats, completion percentage and quarterback rating, but I mean, yeah, man, if the Lions can send guys and they can get there, I think a lot of it is going to depend on what the front four can do without, even if the linebackers obviously are blitzing, if the front four can get there where it's a guy like Aiden Hutchinson who can get there, blitz or not, like he was getting there last week, then I think that really helps you. But if you do have to keep sending people, one thing that I think the Vikings could take advantage of, and I guess to your stat, it's not something Cousins is taking advantage of these last couple of years when blitzed or pressured. But I mean, both their running backs are capable of catching the ball out of the backfield. So if you're sending usually your linebackers on a blitz, that should leave up some space in that short passing game where you could dump it off to Cook or Madison. It doesn't seem like that has worked for the Vikings with the stats that you just put up, but in theory, I don't see why it wouldn't work. So I think it's important for the Lions. I mean, just like we talked about with Michigan State, it's important for the Lions to get pressure with that front four specifically, for Charles Harris, for Aiden Hutchinson, to get to the quarterback, to put pressure on Kirk Cousins so that he is making those mistakes, which we all know Cousins loves to make mistakes, right? Fumbling the ball as well. He's a big-time fumbler, and I love him. Go Green. But it's it's what he is, and hopefully the Lions can take advantage of it on Sunday. And I feel like we're kind of downplaying the Vikings a little bit. They are essentially touchdown favorites for a reason, and the game is in Minnesota. So as confident as we sound, or at least as I sound, I don't want the fans thinking that I'm just chalking this up as like a walkover win. I do think it's going to be a really tough game.
All right, well, let's put your money where your mouth is. The spread is 5.5. Where are you going?
I take the Lions. I think 3-point game either way.
All right, and money line bet. Where are you going?
Oh man, I don't know. I really want the Lions. I'd probably do it the Lions just because I really want them to win so bad. But
all right, and then the over-under 53.5 over-under.
Over.
All right, I'm going over as well. I'm going Lions to cover as well, but I'm betting Vikes money line. I think we're looking at a 31-28, 30-27, something like that. It's going to be a good football game. And look, the Lions can win this game. That's why I'm picking them inside of that spread. I think this is going to be a good game. The Vikings are the team that I picked to really fight for the division with the Packers this year. I think they are a good football team. I think their offense, when clicking, is really hard to stop. Our defense is still not great, and I think that's going to be a reason. And if the Vikings get pressure and they have a defensive line that absolutely can, Goff is going to make mistakes. And those mistakes can hurt us.
Hey, Ryan Griffin here. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Griffin and Bass. Be sure to give us your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to click the bell to receive the latest notifications from DSN and subscribe for breaking news, community blogs, polls, contests, and other content.